Hi everybody, welcome back to Fastcuts. Today we are going to recap a horror action film titled The Rakwin, directed by Lee Van Kyra. This is a film that has won first place in the list of films like The Meg, Jaws, and Deep Blue Sea, which are based on the theme of the sea and its wildness and adventure. The audience can simultaneously enjoy the beauty and horror of the sea in this film. The film begins in a dark mode with a pregnant woman's red belly as the first thing to be seen. They were in a bathtub when Lizzie opens her eyes in shock when she suddenly hears the sound of water being splashed into her stomach. It was a dream Lizzie had. Lizzie and her husband Kyle are in Vietnam for a vacation. Vietnam is a beach that is as beautiful as Maldives or even more so. Grains of white sand, sea water as clear as the bottom, the blue sky that complements it, and resorts that open your eyes to the blue sea have made Vietnam more beautiful. Lizzie and Kyle are traveling to Vietnam. They travel on a boat across the sea. It is night. Lizzie is out on the boat with her phone, startled by the dream. Kyle also came out looking for Lizzie. Both of them came out and were talking with love. From their conversation, it is clear that Lizzie has a past that she cannot forget. Kyle tells her that we are starting this trip to forget everything and start a new life. Because she was in the middle of the sea, Lizzie's phone was not getting range. Kyle shows Lizzie the ocean that stretches out as far as the eye can see before them. Bathed in the cold moon, the sea was beautiful at night, hiding its mysteries. But that sea also has another face of the sea that we have to watch with bated breath. Lizzie and Kyle make it to Vietnam. As mentioned earlier, Vietnam was a beach with beautiful scenery. A lot of tourists came to Vietnam for vacation and honeymoon, a festive atmosphere everywhere. While sightseeing in Vietnam, Lizzie and Kyle come across a statue of a little girl. Kyle asks a Vietnamese woman he sees there who the girl is. It was a statue of a courageous girl named Wo Thi So today. A little girl bravely faced the French rulers at the age of 14 to save her country. People still remember her with great respect. The girl was later hanged by the French army. Hearing this, Lizzie's expression changes. She is thinking something. Something is definitely on her mind. Kyle and Lizzie head to a nearby coffee shop. That's when Lizzie's mom calls her on video. Kyle this time went to the beach to play shuttle. Lizzie and her mother are talking on the phone very happily. Lizzie talked to her mother all about the beauty of Vietnam. They console her that this is a journey to forget everything and start a new life. There, everything is expensive for the resorts. A single day's rent can account for half of their savings. Both of them came here thinking that they needed a release from the past, which they want to forget at any cost. Suddenly there was news on the TV about some depression that has formed over the sea. Upon hearing this news, Lizzie goes to Kyle. In Vietnam, they live in a resort that juts out into the sea a short distance from the land. They were a few resorts like beautiful little huts made of wood and straw. Lizzie tells Kyle that ever since she heard the girl's story, she's been feeling uneasy. Kyle understands her distress and promises her that we can leave here tomorrow. But Kyle told her with a laugh that he doubted he would ever get back the rent. Kyle and Lizzie go for a swim in the ocean. Their swimming in the clear blue water is a little romantic. In the scene, we can fully enjoy the beauty of the ocean. It really feels like traveling through the sea. The seafloor is depicted in such a beautiful visual. Glistening coral reefs, fishes, and turtles swimming within them add to the beauty of the sea. So they sit on a rock that they found in the sea. In the middle of the conversation, Kyle's leg was cut by a sharp stone on the rock and started to bleed. Seeing this, Lizzie remembers everything she has been through. It is only now that we get a glimpse of their past. Lizzie once conceived a child, but that child became aborted. After that, Lizzie is afraid of blood. Kyle reassures her. Kyle says that it is not our fault, but that God did not give life to that child. But Lizzie wasn't ready to hear that. She laments, saying that she lost the baby only because of her fault. Kyle returned with her to the resort, so that night they decided to stay at the resort. Lizzie opens her eyes to the sound of rain outside. She calls Kyle and tells him that she is scared, but Kyle replies to her that there is nothing to fear. It's normal rain during the monsoon season. Kyle and Lizzie sleep peacefully, thinking that there is nothing to fear. The phone in their room rang suddenly. The receptionist informs them that there is low pressure over the sea, and you can change the resort if you want. But Kyle thinks there is no better time to celebrate the honeymoon than this cold rainy night. So they inform the receptionist that they will stay at the resort that night. The time is midnight. Lizzie opens her eyes to the sound of the windows breaking. Before she could grasp what was happening, the sea had taken on a monstrous shape. A strong storm and even stronger waves started to rock the resort. Lizzie and Kyle get out of bed terrified. By that time, the The resort was tilted to one side due to strong currents. Kyle crawled under the bed. One of Kyle's legs was badly injured after falling on the bed. Kai tells Lizzie to call someone on the phone for a favor, but by then the range of the phone was gone. A sudden storm knocks Lizzie out after hearing Kyle's screams. She hit her head and fell to the floor. Opening their eyes after some time, Lizzie and Kyle were shocked to see the sight. The resort they were staying in is moving away from the coast with them. Before they could call anyone for help, the strong waves washed their house into the bay. Lizzie and Kyle are at a standstill, not knowing what to do. Even their home is going to the deep sea with them. Realizing that if it's too late, they'll be a long way from shore, Kyle tells her that they can swim to shore, but Lizzie did not have the courage to swim through the turbulent sea and escape. Kyle gets ready to jump into the ocean with her. Suddenly the house hits a cliff, and Lizzie slips out of Kyle's hand and falls into the sea. The waves are smashing the house hard against the rock. Lizzie falls into the sea hanging on Kyle's arm. Kyle immediately sees the danger ahead. A huge rock is standing right next to the house. Kyle realized that Lizzie could be hurt by hitting the rock if the waves hit anymore. He quickly pushes her overboard. In the next moment, the house was hit by a rock and collapsed. Lizzie somehow swam to the top of the wreckage of the wrecked house. Kyle was lying there in an accident. Both of them hug each other and cry in relief that their lives have been restored. The wound on Kyle's leg became more severe and began to bleed uncontrollably. Lizzie couldn't look at it because she was afraid of seeing blood. She asks Kyle, "Will anyone come to save us?" Kyle reassures her that people will definitely come looking for us when it gets dark. Just then, Lizzie sees a rock in the middle of the sea. She asks Kyle if he wants to climb on top of it and wave to the shore, but Kyle didn't agree with that, because first of all, the rock stands at a great height. He cannot climb into it with his injured leg. Another is that the storm and waves are getting stronger. Climbing on top of the rock is sure to cause danger. Not only that, will anyone be on land in this storm? Will they be able to recognize themselves in the darkness of this crime if there is one? No one can come through the rising waves and save themselves even if they realize it. That's why Kyle didn't agree with Lizzie's opinion. But Lizzie forces Kyle to. She knew that no one would come to save them if the hut went too far with them. Everyone would think they drowned in the sea. In the end, she reluctantly spent the night in the cabin with Kyle. Both of them open their eyes the next day when it is dawn. Seeing the sight, Lizzie calls out to Kyle in fear. The sea and sky are clear. The half-destroyed shack with them drifts lazily over the water and the wind. They were very tired and without enough food or water, and Kyle's leg wound was bleeding non-stop. Lizzie loses control, thinking about the danger they are both in. Lizzie says that maybe if we had climbed that rock yesterday and signaled to land, someone would have come and saved us. But it was only because of Kyle's disapproval that they had to be stranded in the middle of the sea today. There is no guarantee that you will be able to return alive from here. Can't last more than 2 days without food and water. Apart from this, one should also fear the attack of marine creatures. She knew that if there were more storms and torrential rains, if the storms and waves got stronger in this mid-ocean, their half-destroyed hut would collapse and be destroyed. There is only a 100th chance of survival. She confronts Kyle about this, but Kyle claims that he stopped her because it was not safe to climb the rock during the heavy rain and storm. Besides, there is no guarantee that someone will see it or help if you wave from there. Clinging to the rock in that storm is extremely dangerous. But when he heard Lizzie's argument, Kyle lost control. Saying, "Okay, you can do as you want," Kyle prepares to jump into the sea with her. Kyle noticed the wound on his leg only when he suddenly threw up. Blood began to flow from it again. Even if a drop of blood falls into the sea, sharks are creatures that have a strong sense of smell, and so they pushed on that night as well. The next day he was thirsty. They are surrounded by salt water. Finally, Lizzie wades into the sea to see if there are any bags or bottles stuck at the bottom of the ruined hut. Lizzie got 2 small bottles of drinking water and a bag of them. She comes floating up with it. When she got back into the sea, she noticed a large group of fish moving very fast. Usually, a school of fish moves through the sea in a group like this, only when it is scared by something. Lizzie soon became aware of the presence of the shark. She quickly swims to the top of the hut. "We're in the shark habitat," Lizzie tells Kyle in horror, but Kyle didn't take it for granted, saying that it would be his feeling. They drink little by little the water that was in their hands. Hunger and thirst had exhausted them. To make matters worse, the skin is completely dry because of the salt water stuck in the body. Bitingly cold at night and scorchingly hot in the morning. Losing all hope and facing death at any moment, Lizzie notices a distant boat, but they were too far away to be heard if called. Lizzie and Kyle quickly try to get their attention by burning all the papers in their bowels to make smoke. Since there is no match, they try to make fire by exposing a bottle filled with salt water to sunlight. But by that time the boat had vanished away from their sight. Lizzie is sobbing in the grief of losing her last hope. That's when a helicopter caught their attention in the sky. Thinking that this time they have to escape somehow, they again try to melt the bottle and start a fire. The fire alone does not burn except to melt the bottle. By this time, the helicopter has disappeared. Suddenly the fire ignites and it spreads like a fire. With that, the rest of the hut caught fire. Realizing that there is no escape, Kyle and Lizzie jump into the ocean and escape. But by that time their hut was completely destroyed. At the same time, Kyle's leg began to bleed again as he jumped into the water. When she saw the fish flocking, Lizzie realized that the sharks were coming after smelling blood. To escape the sharks' clutches, Lizzie swims with Kyle and sits on a plank that was left behind. But it was not sharks as they expected. Instead, there were pods of dolphins. Anyway, Kyle and Lizzie comfort each other as they escape the accident. But their consolation was short-lived. Real disasters are coming for them. Lizzie takes the cloth and bandages Kyle's leg. With their hut destroyed, they now have nothing but a white blanket in their hands. That wet cloth is completely covered with blood. Lisa apologizes to Kyle. Both of them came to this beach for their honeymoon to change his sadness and make him happy. Otherwise, there would not have been such a situation in the middle of the sea. Lizzie feels guilty that this is her fault, but Kyle reassures her. In fact, he is the one who is at fault. I should have listened to her more. He should have seen her needs as she was pregnant with his child and stayed with him. In that case, Lizzie would have given birth to the child without any risk. Lizzie says we're the luckiest couple in the world right now anyway, because Lizzie playfully tells Kyle that those of us on our honeymoon have moments we will never forget. No other couple in the world can have such an experience-filled honeymoon. Kyle says that if he gets back alive from here, there will be enough stories to write a book. He jokingly tells Lizzie that they are a heroic couple to die so young without even having babies. In any case, they promise each other that they will support and shade each other as long as they have life. Kyle's health is getting worse day by day. Lizzie comforts him as can be. She tells him that Kyle is the greatest gift she could ever receive in life. She doesn't know how many days she can hold on to just one log. However, Lizzie hopes that everything will be fine. After saying so, one by one they fell asleep. Later, when Lizzie opens her eyes, she sees Kyle's leg pouring out. The blood is running down the sea. It happened so quickly. A huge shark comes under the wooden plank they are lying on. As the shark rose above the water, the log on which Lizzie was laying moved away. Lizzie uses another piece of wood she has in hand to fight off the shark, as if it were hers. But the shark smelled the blood flowing from Kyle's leg and took him down into the water. Terrified, Lizzie jumps into the water to save Kyle, but she couldn't find him. The shark had taken him far away. Desperately, Lizzie clings to the tree trunk and cries. Suddenly, Kyle floats above the water. Lizzie is trying her best to pull him up. By then, another giant shark had grabbed his leg and dragged him back into the water. Lizzie tries to stab the shark with the wooden stick she has in her hand. A sting was taken right through the body of the shark. It grabs Kyle's feet. Lizzie does her best to drag Kyle into the tree, but because the log was too short and Kyle was too tired, he couldn't climb the log. Kyle is lying in the water with a bleeding leg. That much of the sea they stand on has turned blood-colored. Lizzie saw a group of sharks approaching from a distance after smelling the scent. She quickly grabs Kyle and paddles away with her hand in the water. Kyle is lying like that with his whole body in the water and only his head on the log. He had lost a lot of blood and was completely exhausted. Fortunately, there were no shark attacks. So that night, clouds were rolling in the sky. Lizzie opens her eyes as the raindrops hit her face. Suddenly a small piece of land came to her attention while walking a little further into the sea. Lizzie tries to wake Kyle up happily, but Kyle didn't open his eyes no matter how much he called. Lizzie tries hard to pull him up to the water. It was then that Lizzie saw that horrible sight in the dark. Kyle had lost both legs in the shark attack. He had no part of his body below the waist. Seeing this, Lizzie is not sure what to do. She screamed. In the beautiful visuals, we get to see such painful scenes that can be compared to the death of Jack in the evergreen romantic film Titanic. But here we see an even more terrifying scene. He lived every moment underwater in pain with half missing legs. Finally, Kyle departs, leaving Lizzie alone in a world without pain. Lizzie remembers their life. She couldn't bear to see the one who had walked with her until yesterday as support and shade in all pains, lying in front of her eyes today with half a body. Lizzie also looks at Kyle with an impassiveness. Lizzie was lying on a rock when she opened her eyes. Kyle's dead body floats on a log in his hand like a piece of paper. Lizzie's eyes filled with tears. Suddenly, Kyle got up and walked over the sea to Lizzie. He wakes Lizzie up. Kyle tells her that our lives are not meant to end here in the middle of the ocean. We need to escape somehow. Lizzie tells him that she wants Kyle to be with her all the time. Kyle promises her that he will never leave her and that he will always be there for her. Lizzie slowly stood up from the rock, holding Kyle's hand. Suddenly a huge shark jumped over him and Kyle went down into the water with him. Lizzie quickly opened her eyes in shock. It took her a while to believe that what she had just seen was just a dream. She really was lying on a rock. A short distance away, Kyle's dead body is floating on a wooden plank. Half of the body has been eaten by the sharks. Suddenly, another shark came near the body and went down with it. There were other huge sharks scrambling for Kyle's body. She could only weep silently as she watched her beloved's body being mutilated by sharks in front of her. Realizing that the sharks will approach her at any moment, Lizzie immediately tries to escape. It had been raining, and now the rock she was lying on was almost submerged. She is standing in water up to her waist. It was a deep sea full of coral reefs where sharks live in groups. Next to it is a small land like an island with sand dunes. Lizzie sees the sharks coming and tries to run quickly to shore. The shark grabbed one of her legs, even though she made it to shore. A large chunk of meat from her thigh reached the shark's mouth. To dislodge the shark from its legs, Lizzie picks up a stone lying there and pokes it in the eye. Suddenly, the shark grabbed the leg. Lizzie runs ashore with her injured leg. By then, a round piece of flesh was missing from her thighs. Lizzie is walking along the shore surrounded by sea on all four sides. She couldn't see the way ahead because of the icy conditions. It was snowing so hard that even a person standing nearby couldn't see it. Lizzie walks forward, stumbling. Suddenly they were surprised to see the sight in front of them. In front of her stands a huge mountain. If she wanted to move forward, she could only climb and descend the mountain. Otherwise, you will have to go back to the sea and fall into the mouth of those fish. Her leg wound is going to be critical. Blood is running down the path she walks. After much effort, they crawled into those rocks. What she saw beyond that, it can be described as God's luck or a miracle. On the other side of that mountain, a man was lying on a raft hiding his face with his hat. She is so desperate that she can't even make a sound, so she goes straight down the sea and gets on that raft. The person in the raft is sleeping peacefully without knowing this. Without asking him, Lizzie drinks water from a bottle she sees nearby. That's how helpless she was. But as soon as she drinks it, Lizzie spits it out. Then she tried to wake him up. She pleads with him to save her, but it was a Korean guy. He couldn't understand her language. Lizzie somehow explained that she was lost at sea and that her husband had died. For Koreans, it is like watching a drama. He would never have dreamed that such a woman would join the raft in this middle sea. She tells him that she has been attacked by a shark and that the injury is serious and needs to be taken to the hospital. Then he noticed the wound on her leg. He soon realized it was a shark attack. He was a person who couldn't speak. He consoles her and makes her sit on the side of the raft. She keeps asking him if she can take him home. He unties the bandage on her wound and examines her leg. Lizzie turns away, unable to see the state of her leg. Fortunately, he had a box in his hand. A bait will be hooked on it. Realizing that the wound on her leg was an accident, he was going to stitch up her wound with that bait hook. He pours the liquid from the bottle that she took earlier on her wound. It was a spirit. Lizzie screams in agony as he pours in. He slowly hooks and stitches through her wound. Despite the pain, Lizzie endured it all. She had the feeling that she was going to escape after all the dangers were over. But that happiness was short-lived. There too the shark came looking for her. The Korean guy goes under the sea to see if there are any fish in a fish basket placed under a 3-valve. It is at this time that the shark comes there. It's looking to crash into their raft and capsize it. Sensing danger, Lizzie tells him loudly to come back, but he was under the sea so he didn't hear what she was saying. After some time she noticed the color of the sea changing. Blood began to flow over the surface of the water. This made her realize that something has happened to him. Lizzie tries to save him by giving him a rope she found on the raft, but by that time one of his hands had been bitten by a shark. Lizzie panics as the severed arm floats up to the surface, bleeding. They took the oars off the raft and tried to save him. She took hold of his other hand and tried to pull him in, but when he, in an agony of death, pulled her hard, Lizzie fell into the sea along with the raft. He kicks her on the head and tries to go up. Finally, both of them grabbed the rope and tried to climb up the raft. Lizzie was able to get on the raft, but he couldn't hold on to the rope because he didn't have one hand. Just as Lizzie was pulling him in, the shark came in and bit him in the waist and took him back into the water. Lizzie watched in pain as the man lay in the shark's mouth and clawed for his life. She had no idea what to do, but even this does not contain shark's dung, and it came looking for Lizzie again. Seeing the shark approaching the raft from afar, Lizzie tries to kill it using a machine on the raft. It was a rotating fan-like machine at the bottom of a ship. In fact, the raft she was standing on was not even in the mouth of the shark, and came up against the raft. She places the machine in the shark's mouth. It pierced the shark's flesh, and blood started pouring out of its face. The shark leaves the raft and goes far away, but because it was left unkilled, its revenge was only doubled. The shark came at her again with tremendous force, but this time, that machine was not working. The shark attacks Lizzie and the raft, flipping it upside down into the sea. A pointed arc was attached to a rope attached to the raft and was thrust into the seabed. She wrapped herself around the rope. In no time the shark reached there searching for her. Lizzie was certain that her life was about to end. She knew she couldn't escape from the creature's mouth anymore, and the spear that was wrapped around its body and its mouth opened at her and pierced the shark's throat, finally killing it. Lizzie climbed back into the raft. She soon sees a big land nearby. It was an island with human habitation. There were many people working on that island like the Koreans he had seen before. All of them see the raft coming and go there. She looks up to the sky and thanks God for her life. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.